Hey everyone! If you found value in part 1 of Money, Master the Game, you're in for a treat. Today, we continue breaking down Tony Robbins' life-changing book on how to achieve true financial freedom. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're serious about mastering your money. 30 years, the friend paying 1% in fees has nearly twice as much money as the friend paying 3%. We're talking about a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars. As Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, has shown over a lifetime, these small fees can devour 50% to 70% of your potential nest egg. It's the difference between retiring comfortably and having to work an extra decade. So, how do they get away with this? It's like a magic trick. They want you to focus on one hand, the expense ratio, which is the fee they actually advertise, while the other hand is quietly taking your money. The expense ratio is just the tip of the iceberg. One economist, Robert Hiltonmith, decided to dig into the fine print of his own 401k funds. After a month of research, he uncovered a mind-boggling list of 17 different kinds of fees buried in the jargon. Things like transaction costs, administrative fees, account fees, and something called soft dollar costs. It's a system designed to be confusing. You don't need to know what all these fees are called. You just need to know they exist and that they're bleeding your account dry. It's a financial death by 1,000 cuts. So, how do you escape the fee factories? The solution is beautifully simple and incredibly effective. You need to get your total annual investment costs down to 1.25% or less. That includes the cost of any advice you get, plus the cost of the investments themselves. How is this even possible? By using low-cost index funds like the ones from Vanguard or dimensional funds. These funds don't have a highly paid manager trying and failing to beat the market. They just track the market and their fees are a tiny fraction of what the big mutual funds charge. This single change is the key. By replacing your expensive funds with low-cost alternatives, you stop the bleeding and put that money back to work for your future, not your fund managers. Now that you've seen behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. You're becoming an insider. You are the chess player, not the chess piece. Knowledge is potential power, but execution trumps knowledge. The next step is to take action. Resolve right now that you will never again pay insane fees for subpar performance. Making this one change could get you to your financial goals 5, 10, or even 15 years faster. It's time to take back your money. M3. R returns. What you see is what you get. You know how on dating apps, everyone's profile picture looks suspiciously perfect? That's kind of how mutual funds report their returns. Tony Robbins calls it putting lipstick on a pig, and it's another one of those myths designed to mislead you. Let's start with the illusion of average returns. This is going to blow your mind. Imagine a fund has a wild couple of years. It goes up 50% one year and then down 50% the next. What's the average return? Well, you'd think it's 0%, right? You should break even. But you'd be wrong. If you started with $100,000, after those 2 years, you wouldn't have $100,000. You'd be left with just $75,000. You lost 25% of your money on an investment with a 0% average return. It's a statistical trick that makes performance look much better than it actually is. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But the grand illusion doesn't stop there. This is the technical part, but it's so important. The returns that mutual funds advertise are what's known as time-weighted returns. It's a fancy term for a simple misleading idea. They calculate their performance as if you invested a lump sum of money on day one and didn't touch it for the entire year. But who does that? Most of us invest over time, contributing a little bit from every paycheck into our 401k. Our actual return based on when our money goes in and out is called a dollar-weighted return. And according to the legendary Jack Bogle, founder of Vanguard, the dollar-weighted return that investors actually get is often 3% lower per year than the time-weighted return the fund advertises. So when you see a fund boasting a 6% return, you might have only gotten 3%. It's a huge difference. So, what's the solution to all this misleading math? First, you need to remember the truths we've already uncovered. 1. 96% of fund managers don't beat the market. 2. Hidden fees will destroy your wealth. And now, 3. The returns they advertise aren't what you actually get. You are no longer flying blind. You're becoming an insider. And as an insider, you can take back control. There are simple online calculators, one called MoneyChimp, where you can plug in your own numbers and see your actual rate of return. No more guesswork, no more being fooled by the glossy brochure. Learning all this can make you feel like you can't trust anyone in the financial world. It's a natural reaction. You start to think you have to do everything yourself, become an island. But that's not the answer. There are incredible trustworthy financial professionals out there who will put your interests first. You don't have to go it alone. The real question is, how do you find them? How do you tell the difference between a real guide and a salesman in disguise? As the famous source Deep Throat from the Watergate scandal said, follow the money. Always follow the money. And that's exactly what we'll do next. M4. I'm your broker and I'm here to help. After learning about the crazy high fees and underperformance of most mutual funds, it's easy to feel trapped. Tony Robbins uses this powerful image of a wildebeest at a river bank in Africa. It knows the water is full of crocodiles. It just saw one of its buddies get snatched. But it also knows if it doesn't drink, it will die in the hot sun. That's the modern investor. We know we can't just sit on our cash because inflation will eat it alive. But dipping our toes into the market feels incredibly risky. So, who can we trust to guide us through these dangerous waters? This brings us to one of the most important distinctions you will ever learn about your money. The difference between a broker and a fiduciary. Most people think they're the same thing, but legally they are worlds apart. Your typical broker, who might call themselves a financial advisor or wealth manager, operates under something called the suitability standard. This means the investment they sell you only has to be suitable for your general goals. It doesn't have to be the best option. It doesn't have to be the cheapest option. Think about it. Would you want a suitable marriage or fly on an airline with a suitable safety record? Of course not. A fiduciary, on the other hand, operates under a much higher legal standard. They are required by law to put your best interests first. Always. It's a simple but profound difference. A broker is like a butcher. When you walk into a butcher shop and ask what's for dinner, the answer is always meat. A fiduciary is like a dietitian. They're going to recommend what's actually best for your health, whether it's fish, chicken, or vegetables. One is paid to sell a product. The other is paid to give you conflict-free advice. The evidence of this conflict of interest is everywhere. For example, a study found that nearly half of all mutual fund managers don't own a single share in the fund they manage. Think about that. The chef doesn't eat his own cooking. What does that tell you about the ingredients? Then there's the classic story of the Enron collapse. This massive company was cooking its books and heading for bankruptcy. But even as it was crashing and burning, what were the big Wall Street firms telling their clients? Their research reports overwhelmingly said buy or hold right up until the stock was worthless. The firms were protecting their own interests, not their clients. So what's the solution? How do you find a dietitian instead of a butcher? The answer is to actively seek out and align yourself with a true independent fiduciary. Tony Robbins talks about a partnership he helped create to level the playing field. They launched a service called Stronghold Financial, which has a patented online system that lets anyone, not just the wealthy, link their investment accounts and get a free analysis. in about 5 minutes. It shows you the real fees you're paying, the hidden risks you're taking, and provides a conflict-free plan forward. But whether you use that tool or find someone on your own, the key criteria are the same. You need to ask them directly. 1. Are you a registered investment advisor, a legal fiduciary? 2. How do you get paid? Is it a transparent fee for advice, or do you get commissions for selling products? 3. Where will my money actually be held? It should be with a large reputable third-party custodian like Schwab, Fidelity, or TD Ameritrade, not the advisor's own firm. Finding someone who can answer these questions correctly is how you get a real guide for your journey. It's how you stop being the chess piece and become the chess player. M5, your retirement is just a 401k away. For most of us, it's the only retirement plan we've ever known. But the 401k was never meant to be our sole lifeline. It started as a nice little supplement, a way for executives to tuck away some extra cash. But over time, companies saw it as a golden opportunity to get rid of expensive guaranteed pensions and shift all the risk and complexity onto us, the employees. We've become the guinea pigs in a massive retirement experiment, and the results are just now coming in. So why is this system so broken for the average person? In her article, Our Ridiculous Approach to Retirement, expert Teresa Ghilarducci lays out just how impossible the expectations are. To succeed, you basically need to know when you're going to die, save a huge chunk of your income from day one, never touch it for any life emergency, and earn a steady return every single year. It's a recipe for failure. The system expects you to be a part-time investment genius while also working a full-time job and raising a family. On top of that, most 401k plans are loaded with up to 17 different layers of fees. These fees are like a hole in your boat, slowly sinking your retirement dreams. They can eat away 50% to 70% of your potential nest egg over a lifetime. The solution is to find a low-cost, transparent 401k plan that doesn't treat your retirement account like a piggy bank for Wall Street. Tony Robbins shares his own story of discovering that his company's big-name 401k plan was loaded with excessive fees. After a frustrating search, he found a firm called America's Best 401k that was built differently. Instead of offering a menu of expensive, underperforming mutual funds, they use only low-cost index funds. The difference was staggering. His company was able to cut its total plan fees from over 2.5% down to just 0.75%. That change alone put over $1 million back into the pockets of his employees over the life of the plan. This is the power of finding a low-cost solution. There are tools out there like the fee checker on the America's Best 401k website that let you see exactly how much your own plan is costing you. Now, you might be thinking, what can I do? I'm just an employee. It turns out you have more leverage than you think. And if you're a business owner, listen up. The Department of Labor holds business owners legally responsible for making sure their 401k plan has reasonable fees. They've been handing out huge fines to companies with bad plans. This gives employees a powerful tool. You can go to your boss or HR department armed with this information and advocate for a change. You're not just helping yourself, you're protecting the company and helping all of your colleagues. Finally, let's talk about a game-changing strategy, the Roth 401k. The conventional wisdom is to take the tax deduction on your 401k today and pay taxes later in retirement. But with our national debt skyrocketing, does anyone really think taxes will be lower in the future? If you were a farmer, would you rather pay tax on the small seed you plant or on the giant harvest you grow? The answer is obvious. A Roth 401k lets you pay tax on the seed, your contributions today. Then all of that growth, the entire harvest, is 100% tax-free in retirement. It's one of the best legal tax havens available, and it gives you certainty about how much of your money is actually yours to keep. By combining a low-cost plan with a smart Roth strategy, you can turn your 401k from a leaky bucket into a powerful engine for your financial future. M6, Target Date Funds. Just set it and forget it. If you've ever looked at the investment menu in your 401k, you've probably seen them. Target Date Funds. They have names like Retirement 2045 or Freedom 2050. The sales pitch is incredibly seductive. Just pick the year you plan to retire, put your money in, and forget about it. The fund promises to automatically get more conservative as you get older. But this simple solution has some major problems hiding under the surface. For starters, the reason these funds are on your 401k menu in the first place is often because of a pay-to-play system where fund companies pay for that shelf space. The very foundation of these funds is built on shaky ground. Target date funds are based on two giant assumptions. 1, that bonds are always safe, and 2, that stocks and bonds always move in opposite directions. But as we saw in the 2008 crash, both can fall hard at the same time. This has led to some massive misunderstandings. A survey found that over half of investors in target date funds didn't think they could lose money over a 10-year period, and nearly a third thought they provided a guaranteed return. None of that is true. They are simply a prepackaged mix of stocks and bonds, and they come with no guarantees at all. So, how did these flawed products become the default retirement option for millions of Americans? It's a wild story. Tony Robbins recounts the experience of a brilliant economist named David Babel, who has multiple PhDs and has worked for Goldman Sachs and the World Bank. The Department of Labor hired him to study whether target date funds were a good retirement option. His research found they were riddled with flaws and that other safer options were better. But at the same time, the mutual fund industry paid for its own $2 million study, which surprise concluded that target date funds were the best thing since sliced bread. When it came time to present the findings, Dr. Babel's rigorous mathematical critique was essentially ignored. The industry got the government's seal of approval, and a 2006 law paved the way for target date funds to become the automatic choice in most 401k plans. The reality of this decision hit home hard in 2008. People who were in 2010 target date funds just 2 years from their planned retirement thought their money was safe and conservative. Instead, they saw gut-wrenching losses with some of those funds dropping 20%, 30% or even more. The set it and forget it promise turned into a nightmare. So why do so many financial experts still defend them? The argument is that target date funds are the lesser of two evils. Before they existed, people would make even worse mistakes on their own, like putting all their retirement savings into their own company's stock. Remember Enron? Or just letting their money sit in cash where it gets eaten by fees and inflation. From that perspective, a flawed plan is better than no plan at all. So, what's the path forward for someone who wants to do better? If you want extreme simplicity, an ultra-low-cost target date fund like the ones from Vanguard is an acceptable choice. It's not perfect, but it's a reasonable lesser evil. However, for those reading this book, the goal isn't just to be average. The superior path is to learn true asset allocation. Instead of buying a prepackaged one-size-fits-all fund, you learn how to build your own portfolio using a mix of different low-cost index funds. This is the single most important skill of a successful investor. And it gives you real control over your financial future. It's time to move beyond set it and forget it and start designing a plan that truly fits your goals. My 7 I hate annuities and you should too. You've probably seen the ads online. I hate annuities and you should too. They promise to expose this terrible investment and of course sell you their stock picking service instead. But here's a fascinating twist. When Ben Bernanke had to disclose his personal finances to become the chairman of the Federal Reserve, what were his two largest holdings? Annuities. So what does the most powerful man in finance at the time know that the rest of us don't? The truth is lumping all annuities into one bad category is a huge mistake. Tony Robbins tells the story of Dr. David Babel, a brilliant Wharton professor who, instead of risking his money in the market, used a series of annuities to create a guaranteed stress-free income for life. He has total peace of mind knowing he'll never run out of money. This isn't a new idea. The concept of an annuity is actually 2,000 years old, dating back to the Roman Empire. You'd give a lump sum to a pool and you'd get a guaranteed income payment for the rest of your life. But over the last 50 years, the financial industry has created some modern-day mutants. And there's one you absolutely need to know about: the variable annuity. This is the product that gives all annuities a bad name. In short, it's just a package of those same high-fee, underperforming mutual funds we've already talked about, but wrapped inside an even more expensive insurance product. We already know the average mutual fund costs you around 3.1% a year in total hidden charges. When you buy that fund inside a variable annuity, the insurance company adds its own layers of fees. There's a mortality and expense fee and administrative charges. When you add it all up, you're paying a grand total of around $4.70 a year. That's $4,700 for every $100,000 you invest coming off the top before you make a single dime. After fees that high, there are often no gains left to even pay taxes on. So, what's the solution? It's not to avoid all annuities. It's to know the difference between the good ones and the bad ones. There are other types of annuities like fixed indexed annuities that can provide a guaranteed lifetime income stream and 100% protection on your initial investment. And here's the real power move. You can combine one of these good annuities with a Roth IRA. Think about what that means. You get a guaranteed paycheck for life. And because it's in a Roth, that income stream is 100% tax-free. No matter how high tax rates go in the future, your income is protected. It's a legal, secure, tax-free income stream for life. So, while it's smart to be skeptical, don't let the marketing myths scare you away from a tool that, when used correctly, can be a cornerstone of a truly secure retirement. My 8, you got to take huge risks to get big rewards. We've all heard the saying, no risk, no reward. We're taught that if you want to win big in the investment world, you have to be willing to gamble big. But what if that's just another myth designed to get you to risk your hard-earned money? Tony Robbins argues that the most successful investors on the planet think the exact opposite way. Their primary focus isn't on hitting home runs. It's on, as Richard Branson says, protecting the downside. When Branson launched Virgin Airways, it looked like a massive risk going up against giants like British Airways. But what people didn't know was that he had a secret deal. If the airline failed, he could give the planes back. He risked very little for a massive reward. This is the insider secret. Asymmetric risk, reward. It's about finding opportunities where you risk a little to potentially make a lot. Hedge fund manager Kyle Bass did the same thing when he bet against the housing market. He turned $30 million into $2 billion because he found a way to risk just 3 cents for every dollar of potential upside. This kind of insider thinking can get pretty creative. Tony Robbins tells this amazing story about how Kyle Bass taught his sons about risk. What did he do? He went out and bought $2 million worth of nickels. It sounds crazy, but at the time the metal inside a US nickel was actually worth more than 5 cents. He figured the government would eventually change the metal composition, making the old nickels rare and even more valuable. His downside, a nickel is always worth at least a nickel. His upside, a guaranteed risk-free return. It's about learning to see value where no one else is looking. So, you might be thinking, that's great for billionaires, but what about me? In the past, the tools to get upside without the downside were reserved for the super wealthy, but that's changing. Tony Robbins details 3 specific strategies that are becoming more accessible. 1. Structured notes. This is basically a loan you make to a major bank. In return, they guarantee you'll get 100% of your money back after a set term, but if the market goes up during that time, you also get to participate in a big chunk of the gains. You get the upside, but you're protected from the downside. 2. Market-linked CDs. These are like a traditional CD, but on steroids. They're FDIC insured, so your principal is safe. But instead of just a tiny interest rate, they also give you a percentage of the stock market's growth. You can make 20 times more than a regular CD with the same level of safety. 3. Fixed, indexed annuities. When structured correctly, these insurance products can do something no other product can. They offer 100% principal protection and participation in market gains, but they can also be converted into a guaranteed paycheck for life. It's like creating your own personal pension. As we shatter these myths one by one, the path to financial freedom gets clearer. We've learned that we don't have to try to beat the market. We don't have to pay insane fees, and we don't have to take huge risks to build real wealth. The game is absolutely winnable. You're no longer in the same leaky boat as everyone else, getting tossed around by the waves. You're learning how to build a safer, more comfortable boat anchored in a harbor, ready to capture the rewards without risking it all. The blindfold is coming off. You're becoming an insider. Mind the lies we tell ourselves. We've spent all this time tearing down the big financial myths. The lies that the industry tells us about fees, returns, and risk. But now we come to the final myth. And this one is the most important because it's not a story someone else tells us. It's the story we tell ourselves. The ultimate thing that stops us from making progress isn't a rigged system or a lack of opportunity. It's our own limiting beliefs. It's the fear of failure. The feeling that we're not enough. So instead of facing that fear, we create stories to justify where we are. We've all been there. Struggling with something for years until one day something snaps. You hit a threshold. You say, that's it, never again. That moment, that's a breakthrough. And it's the key to changing everything. So, how do you create a breakthrough on command? Robbins breaks it down into a powerful 3-step formula. He says, if you want to change your life, you have to change your strategy, your story, and your state. First, strategy. This one is obvious. You need a proven plan. That's what this whole journey is about. Finding the strategies that have worked for the most successful investors in history. Why reinvent the wheel when you can model what the best have already done? A good strategy can save you the most valuable resource of all, time. But strategy alone isn't enough. And that brings us to the second and most important element, your story. 80% of success in life is psychology and only 20% is mechanics. This is why you can give someone the perfect strategy and they still won't follow it. They're held back by a limiting story. A story that says, I'm just not good with numbers, or it takes money to make money, or the system is rigged, so why bother? These stories control our emotions and our emotions drive our actions. With a disempowering story, failure is guaranteed. But if you change your story, you change your life. He uses this example from a Stanford health psychologist who used to warn people about the dangers of stress. But then new research showed something amazing. Stress itself isn't the killer. It's the belief that stress is harmful that's dangerous. People who experienced a lot of stress but believed it was just their body rising to a challenge were no more likely to die than people with low stress. The story they told themselves about the stress literally changed their body's physical reaction to it. That's the power of your story. Finally, there's your state. It's almost impossible to have an empowering story if you're in a lousy physical and emotional state. When you're angry, you remember every bad thing that's ever happened. When you're in love, the world looks beautiful. Your state colors your reality. The fastest way to change your state is to radically change your physiology, the way you move, breathe, and hold your body. He talks about research from a Harvard professor on power posing. Just standing in a confident pose like Wonder Woman with her hands on her hips for 2 minutes can increase testosterone and decrease the stress hormone cortisol. Our bodies can change our minds. So, it all comes down to this. We all get what we tolerate. It's time to stop tolerating the old excuses and the limiting stories. It's time to call on ourselves. When you feel that fear or that old story creeping in, change your physical state. Stand up tall. Put on some music that fires you up. Move your body. From that place of strength, you can rewrite your story. And with an empowered story and a proven strategy, a breakthrough isn't just possible, it's inevitable. What's the price of your dreams? Make the game winnable. If you had to put a number on what it would take to be financially free for the rest of your life, what would it be? $1 million? $5 million? Most of us pick a huge, intimidating number that feels so impossible, we never even start the journey. He tells this story about a young guy at one of his seminars who, when asked this question, proudly stands up and says, $1 billion, $1 billion. But when Tony Robbins started asking questions, it turned out the lifestyle this young man wanted, the private jets, the private island, didn't actually cost $1 billion. In fact, when they did the math. Like this video if it helped you. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 3.